Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Okay, folks, big show lined up for you today, obviously. Here we are, Wednesday, the 28th day of December 2011. And you want him, you've got him. Lindsey Williams is going to be on with us in the third hour with his former oil company exec source. Much of what he's predicted has come true. Some of it hasn't, as the globalists, according to his source, have changed their plans. But basically, pretty much everything his source is putting out now is just there for the world to see. And we'll be getting Lindsey Williams on to discuss all of this with us in the third hour today and to take your calls. Dr. Busby is going to be joining us. He's one of the foremost experts on radiation. He's a British scientist known for his reports about the negative health effects of very low-dose radiation. Busby is the director of Green Audit, environmental consultancy agency, scientific advisor to the low-level radiation campaign, which is set up in '95. He's a professor at the University of Ulster. And, of course, he also has advised the BBC, the EU, and other major groups and organizations. And he gave us really accurate information the first few weeks of Fukushima that turned out to be absolutely accurate. That was pretty shocking at the time. So we'll get about a 45-minute update on Fukushima and just that ongoing disaster with Dr. Busby, Christopher Busby, coming up in part of the second hour today. Now, I ended up covering something last night on the news because a listener mentioned it, and it reminded me of a big hit piece in CBS News and other publications and TV programs last week where the system gets very upset when I touch upon a certain area because it hits at the core of what they're doing, changing the human species as we know it. Genetic, chemical, biological manipulation is going on record. The world eugenics dictatorship that's in control of almost every nation for now 40 years, it'll be 40 years in a few months, has been taking blood from all children at birth and saying it's for a blood test when it really goes in a eugenics database. I told you that 15 years ago. It was declassified 4 years ago. That's just to give you an example of what's really going on. And what's really going on is there's a huge secret global system. The documents we have from it are voluminous, but imagine what we don't know. And so I thought I would get into the chemical, biological, radiological, genetic manipulation going on, the DNA damage happening to humans. This is the real world. We're down here with American Idol and Dancing with the Stars and X Factor and the NFL and celebrities and all the rest of it. Meanwhile, the scientific dictators could care less about all that. That's just stimuli, tribal manipulation they use to control us. And they try to steer art and literature and information and entertainment so that it never points in the direction of reality. Nevertheless, some of their own people do like to throw it in our face from time to time, like Aldous Huxley, who wrote in 1932 basically what they've now achieved. Girls going into puberty at age 5, men not going into puberty till 15, feminized, breast cancer off the charts, other cancers directly linked to bisphenol A. But that's only one chemical. So I thought I'd spend some more time on this today. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, I will get into that. And before that, I will get into all of the news. Here's some of the key news coming up. Iran promises to close down oil route if sanctions imposed. That's at Infowars.com. For the second time in 2 days, Iran has threatened to shut down the Strait of Hormuz if new sanctions are imposed in response to its nuclear program. Vice President of Iran threatened Tuesday to close down the strait and cut off oil exports. The West imposes sanctions on the country's oil shipments. So they say, you cut us off, we cut you off, because they import around half their oil, or around half their refined gasoline. They had plenty of oil. They just don't have the refineries. So we'll be breaking all of that down on the other side. It is Wednesday, 28th day of December 2011, the waning twilight, the dusk as night falls on 2011. Iran promises to close down oil route if sanctions imposed. We have a detailed report and breakdown by Kurt Nimmo at Infowars.com. And then, of course, we also have Heratz out of England, out of Israel, and we also have a report out of the BBC reporting the same thing. Israel, U.S. discuss triggers for military strike on Iran. Newsweek's The Daily Beast is also reporting that countries are discussing red lines in Iran's nuclear program that, if crossed, would justify a preemptive strike on its nuclear facilities. What about the red lines of our so-called government stealing tens of trillions of dollars? What about the red lines of our so-called government setting up FEMA camps and openly saying they'll use the military against the American people to put us in FEMA camps and secretly arrest us? What about all those red lines being crossed? Here's another one, another report dealing basically with the same subject out of Heratz or Heritz. Israel could easily attack Iran. Israel, the United States, and others are saying. Last week, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said that, oh, we can easily attack Iran. I just don't think Iran understands that. Oh, I think Iran understands that well and is preparing to block the Strait of Hormuz that will conservatively double oil prices in this nation. Continuing, Iran, again, could easily block vital oil route. Admiral warns. Iran's Navy commander says blocking oil flow through the Strait of Hormuz would be as easy for us as drinking a glass of water. So again, Iran's Navy commander says blocking oil flow through the Strait of Hormuz would be as easy for us as drinking a glass of water. Iran could easily block oil flow through the Strait of Hormuz, a vital transit route for Persian Gulf oil, if Western governments impose further sanctions on the Islamic State, Iran's Navy commander said Wednesday. Blocking the Strait of Hormuz would be as easy for us as drinking a glass of water, but for the time being, there is no need to do so, their head admiral told Iran's press TV. The European Union has threatened to expand its sanctions on Iran after the UN atomic watchdog published a report in November expressing serious concern over the country's controversial nuclear program. Well, why can Israel have 400 nukes then? EU foreign ministers plan to discuss a possible Iranian oil embargo at their next meeting on January 30th. The admiral's comments follow a televised statement by Iran's vice president, who on Tuesday warned that Iran would not allow one drop of oil to cross the Strait of Hormuz should Western governments impose further sanctions. Now, again, the West is saying, that is the bankers that run Europe and the U.S. and England and Israel, are saying that they will stop ships, they will shut down pipelines, they will not allow oil into Iran, and Iran imports around 50% of its refined gasoline. They have plenty of crude oil, they don't have the refineries, they don't have the infrastructure. And, of course, the globalists want to bomb the sovereign country and destroy its infrastructure, then have internal al-Qaeda groups attack, claim they're freedom fighters, and then have Western-backed invasion of the nation, at least on their Western flank, and break it off in some new Wahhabist/Kurdistan situation. Just like the West is now getting ready to try to break Iraq in 3 pieces, which is always the plan. So this is how the globalists destroy national sovereignty and basically turn different sectors into their own little miniondoms. I'm now inventing words, but that's what, little fiefdoms, little sub-states. And again, I'm not saying Iran is some cornucopia of goodness. I'm not saying their leadership isn't corrupt. Most governments are run by very wicked people. It's that our government, along with the British and others, have overthrown Iran not once, not twice, but 3 times in the last 70 years. And the West has always believed they own Iran, and they do not want any sovereign countries. They don't want the U.S. being sovereign either. And so they are basically prodding and pushing and manipulating Iran into some type of response so that Israel and the United States can blast the country into the Stone Age. And then it'll be off to the races, and Israel will be attacked from all sides, and then Benjamin Netanyahu, with election coming up, can look like the Churchill fighting the evil Hitler. And that's his advisors that have said that to the Washington Times and others. And so the war planners and the social engineers know that even if most people are against war, once a big one is kicked off, people tend to get politically in line and do what they're told. And so what if we're in a depression? So what if they're taking your pension funds? So what? You know what? If you riot, you get shot. And so the West wants this new regional war that many experts agree could lead to World War III as a political cover for what they're doing. Europe wants it. That'll unify the euro. Under the banker takeover, Israel wants it. That'll get their people who are rioting and standing in food lines as well in line. The United States leadership and control arm wants it so that they can attack a country they don't like, which will actually stir up the whole world against us, so they can then stage false flag terror attacks, or there may even be real ones, domestically, and use that to further crack down and roll out the triple funding for TSA checkpoints on the highways that the LA Times announced a few days ago. The TSA, not just for airports anymore, shopping malls, highways, they're coming to your underwear soon. Their hands are going in the pants soon. A total journey into tyranny with the borders wide open. And all the training manuals are for Christians, conservatives, libertarians, Ron Paul type supporters. People that understand what's going on. Now, if you actually read the UN report, as Ron Paul has said, it says they fear they could use this down the road to get material to build a nuclear weapon. And this is just a replay of Bush and Colin Powell with the anthrax vials saying, here are the photos of the trucks, here is the anthrax. Now, they knew those trucks were British-sold mobile 18-wheeler trailers that pump up hydrogen balloons for directing artillery that the British and the U.S. sold to them. U.S. and British systems were sold to them for the 7.5 Iran-Iraq war that was fully funded by the West to have the Muslims kill each other again and get them all into debt again. And the establishment didn't like it that Saddam was actually paying back his debts. And he said, can I invade Kuwait? They're stealing my oil. And the West said, go ahead. April Gillespie said, we don't get involved in inter-Arab affairs. And the same thing they told him whenever he attacked Iran. And he said, okay, I'll attack. They said, go ahead. That's how they manipulate these people, just like Manuel Noriega. Been in prison for decades, on record, shipping drugs out of Panama into the U.S. for the CIA. And then he got a little uppity and started buying palaces in Switzerland bigger than the globalist. And they just said, oh, my gosh, Manuel Noriega, this is all in the film The Panama Deception, he has kidnapped American college students in Panama. And then when the special forces got there after blowing up and engaging in mass murder in Panama City with C-130s flying around with cannons and Gatling guns just randomly blowing everything up and shooting everybody up, it shows the college students